Barnabus E. Lichtenstein was born on August 17, 1982 in Cairo, Egypt, son of the world-renowned physicist Othello T. Lichtenstein, famous for his discovery of the element plurocunarium in 1975. Othello met Leona Kresbichov at a scientific consciousness conference in Moscow, Russia, and the two were promptly married an hour after they met. Leona Kresbichov-Lichtenstein was a Russian Hindu librarian raised by a pragmatist Sudanese monk originally from northern Australia who taught her the art of psychic healing she still employs in her practice at her current home in Chicago, Illinois. Leona raised Barnabus a single mother after her husband, Othello T. Lichtenstein, disappeared at sea after a rare boating accident off the coast of Madagascar caused by a tsunami from an underwater earthquake that shipwrecked an entire crew of scientists that had set out on a sailing expedition around the world in an attempt to utilize hydrogen molecules naturally occurring in organic compounds, such as water from the ocean, as an alternative source of energy in hopes of jump-starting the second industrial revolution. Leona was left with young Barnabus, a brilliant child, voracious reader, intimately aware and mentally acute in the sensorial world all around him. She raised him on Stephen Hawking's, David Hume, and His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. From a young age, Barnabus had been completely terrified of water, due to the abhorrent nature of his own father's demise. After the tragic event of his father's death, young Barnabus quickly set out on a series of experiments with hopes of solving the greatest mystery of the known universe, what it means to be alive at all. Barnabus became increasingly interested in the inner workings of the microcosmic universe, constantly working ever so seamlessly beneath the surface of reality. He began to wonder what exactly could constitute such a highly integrated system of complexity involving the interdependence of a perennially evolving mass of matter and energy. His experiments with chemical reactions and light perspectives led him to his studies in sociology. Barnabus knew that the act of observation required the use of sending a photon to hit what is being observed and return with information was itself a disturbance of reality. This led Barnabus to the perplexing assumption that by observing reality deeply at all times, one might rupture literal discrepancies of reality into gigantic wave distortions of the attentive perception itself. This dangerous conclusion spawned a series of sociological experiments involving the reaction of human beings to various physically induced visual stimuli, the implications of which caused Barnabus to have a neurotic breakdown, followed by indeterminable panic attacks brought about by a rare psychological disease, Homo equitis nervosa, found in young children with abnormally large brains. During a psychotic episode, Barnabus was faced with the absurd contradiction that if observation created reality, then what was observing the universe? And could reality be limited to whatever amounts from a conscious perception of it? And how can time exist outside of the perception of time, since time is only a measure of change? And how many moments are in a moment? And if things are always in a constant state of change, that explains how we could have dinosaurs, sea otters, colonial Japan, squirrels, seagulls, modern civilization, cavemen, and turtles all on one planet, because everything is a result of matter constantly in the state of reconstructing itself. It then became increasingly clear that Barnabus would have to find out once and for all whether he had free will or not by doing the most random thing his body would allow. Barnabus had long hated the idea that the world was simply a slave to Newton's cause and effect, deterministic universe. That simply couldn't be the answer in Barnabas's mind, who daydreamed daily of chucking bright red apples at Sir Isaac Newton's face. Barnabus quickly remembered that even Einstein had referred to a causal universe, stating that God doesn't play dice, when in fact he does, because quantum physics and the uncertainty principle made a predictable world impossible, where, say, God might play dice and lose. But what is God, anyway? God is a flower. God is a penguin. God is a fucking kung fu samurai warlord. God is awkward relationships between sentient beings, and Barnabas was still terrified of people. But not all people were terrified of Barnabas. Barnabas began to take lessons in the ancient arts of Zen meditation from the great spiritual thinker Sri Aazami, master in the old ways of teaching. Sri Aazami quickly decided it would be best for young Barnabas to have his first lesson on the beach in order to directly confront his fear of water by beginning to reveal to him the interconnectedness of everything. The two men meditated deeply on the nature of water and its synchronicity with the ebb and flow of time. Aazami explained to Barnabas how water was an accurate metaphor for time, since ice was frozen like the past. gas was amorphous and anywhere, like the future, and liquid in its original form was fluent, like the present moment. Sri Aazami extended the metaphor of water and time to the circle. The circle being the only shape to appear in nature, such as ripples in a pond from raindrops, to never change its shape under any circumstance. Even as a ripple expands, it remains a perfect circle, thus being a perfect example for the fundamental unchangeable nature of reality. This was also demonstrated in Sri Aazami's famous sand mantra. Each grain of sand collectively embodied the beach. A grain of sand removed from the beach could never be torn from this undeniable unity. This was all the proof needed to suggest that the material universe and all of its complex assembled structures were really the product of a vast and inconceivable emptiness that out of its compassion sprung forth the abstract nature of forms, out of the womb of its void. And that the circle was in fact a perfect example of this unity, and reality then was a result of broken symmetry. As a final teaching at the beach, Aazami tried to get Barnabus to embrace the water and to come to grips with his old fears. But Barnabus wanted more security before attempting such a feat, and needed to start somewhere that was in his mind smaller, safer, and much more comfortable. After Barnabus finally broke his fear, it struck him that there were thousands of species of animals that lived solely in the water. The confidence he had gained in himself sparked his interest as to how these animals could exist in the same place he had once feared so gravely. As Barnabus continued throughout the aquarium, he noticed that almost all of the animals had chosen mates, which instantly reminded Barnabus of his other fear, people. Natasha Bonaparte was an altruist who also studied the new physics and the ancient Eastern cultures. She was madly in love with Barnabus, whom she had seen all over town carrying out experiments. Barnabus was set aback by the fact that Natasha bore a striking resemblance to the only woman he had ever known and loved in his whole life, his mother. Beauty, of course, was the result of symmetry, and for his second and final teaching, Sri Aazami informed Barnabus that the tree was the perfect metaphor for reality. It held unreasonable symmetry and hence beauty, while at the same time depicted the one becoming many, from its trunk to its branches. In order to fully understand beauty, all Barnabus would have to do was understand what it was like to be a tree, and the secrets of reality would be finally unveiled to him. After seeing that young Barnabus had finally figured out both the nature of the tree and grown comfortable with the essence of beauty, Sri Aazami realized he could no longer do anything to teach young Barnabus. He granted him with the amulet of perfect knowledge and disappeared immediately thereafter from the face of the earth, never to be seen again. As for young Barnabus and Natasha, well, let's just say it was only the beginning.